Thanks for listening to the Marketing Evolved podcast with Jason Peterson and Holly Peterson of Generate Marketing. During this time, we bring you some of the current marketing stories and, as always, offer up a bit of our unsolicited advice for small and medium-sized businesses based on our industry expertise and knowledge. And today we are attempting to do the final wrap up of our State of the Union, or more specifically, the state of digital marketing, just from when we started business 9 years ago, basically to kind of where we're at now and what has evolved and changed over the time. Our tagline is Marketing Evolved, and it is ever evolving
Always
to
evolving.
sometimes our point of our frustration and our clients for that matter. But specifically today, we are going to be talking about email marketing. And when I say email marketing, I mean newsletters essentially that are going through via email. Sometimes that can be a confusing topic to people. They think, oh, I have a newsletter, but it's something that they create online and hand distribute. We are talking about solely email marketing only. And then the other thing that we're going to tackle today is online advertising as it relates to, say, Google AdWords, if anyone's ever heard of that. As it relates to social media and boosting and even running ads in the background. So kind of anything and everything under that umbrella of online advertising. All right, so let's chat about email.
Email. Okay. Well, so the way I would start this, I guess, and this is maybe a good point that we try to teach our clients, is you never want to make assumptions on what is effective on what you would do. So email marketing has been around a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, in the past, historically, if you go back 10, 15 years, the method of using email marketing as a tool is you would essentially purchase lists of individuals in a certain demographic, and you would attempt to blast this out. And in many cases, you might, get, let's say it's 5,000 people, you might get less than 1% to maybe open it if you're lucky. So,
well, and let me just add to that with the sole purpose that it was going to result in some sort of hard sale even,
correct,
or referrals for a sale.
Correct. It was very salesy. A lot of times, I know in some of the campaigns I worked on with some other bigger agencies, they were very driven towards financial.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So fast forward to the way that it is now. If you were to ask me my opinion, and most people know the best way to get a hold of Jay is through texting me because I get so many emails. Now, what has been very interesting over the last, I'd say, 5 years, and this is again the area that Holly and Van work a lot in, is that one of the most effective methods we've had and noticed in reaching your current clientele and people that know your business is by using email marketing. And so why is that? So again, I say that my philosophy, and obviously I want to hear your take, Holly, is that email for us is marketing to people you know, not people you don't. So it becomes more of in the spirit of how social media is effective, where you're using the base of those people that you know or know of, clients, friends, family, whatever, and you're having an email that's more social. It's more engaging. It's not salesy.
It's more feature story-esque.
Yes.
Fluffy.
Exactly. Fun. I do say it's like the last thing you want to do with these emails is be annoying. It's meant to have value so that, hey, for example, if I work with a realtor and I buy a house and I won't work with them for 15 years, let's create an email that after that they would still enjoy reading even though they don't do business with you.
Which also brings me to a very important point. And to be honest with you, it's mostly the focus of what emails are for now, email newsletters. And that is simply to stay in front of that individual.
Right.
We know that if we send out an email to a list of 500, say, people, that about our average for our clientele is about a 20 to 30% open rate. Obviously, that could change with industry. It just kind of depends. But that is the average open rate for our clientele. And I would say to get them to open that is pretty good. 20 to 30% is a pretty good open rate, even
Right.
out of 500. Obviously, those rates can go up or down based on how many you have that you're sending it to. And like Jason mentioned before, this isn't a purchase list. This is a validated list of the contacts, the database of individuals that maybe they already have sold to or are customers of, etc. So definitely qualified base list, which is really, honestly, one of the most pivotal, important things as far as email marketing is concerned. But anyway, of that 20 to 30% that open that, we want someone to refer you to another individual who may not
Right.
know about you. And there's that point of awareness. And on top of that, we know that we aren't going to hit every single person at the right buying time. So the idea is that we're staying in front of them with the knowledge that, say, out of 500 people, it's going to resonate maybe with 5 to 10 people.
Right.
And essentially, at the end of the day, it costs you nothing to send it, because most people have anywhere from 1,500 or less contacts. At least that's where they start off at. And for a client like MailChimp, it's not going to cost you anything to have that account, although they're changing some of their rules, much to my dismay, as we discovered yesterday. But that aside, it's not costing you anything to put out that email. So we know that we're not going to hit everybody at the exact right time, and that's not what newsletters are for.
Right.
You just want to stay in front of that individual and stay top of mind and provide them, like Jason said, with information that's of value. Usually we say don't exceed like anywhere from 3 to 5 topics. And that basically means as you're compartmentalizing what you're going to put out there over the course of, say, that month, and that's a whole nother conversation. We don't want you bombarding people in an email with 10 different things going on that are unrelated or even semi-related. It's just too much information, and most people are not going to read that. So we say 3 to 5, get your point across. What's the most important thing to get out that month? Now, I'm going to talk about frequency. Please don't send out a daily email.
No, weekly either.
Even if you're really super salesy and like you've got products and things that you need to talk about. And I know people might fight back on this, but I would certainly put my hand down and say absolutely nothing daily. And it's even a stretch to say that you have something worth saying on a weekly basis.
Yep.
You don't want to get to the point where people roll their eyes when they see that email come in. So you just have to be really careful. And at the end of the day, we're all hoping, and if not, we can help with this too, that you know your audience and you know what they're going to receive and how they're going to receive it. And so I would say most industries, you don't want to send something out more than once a month, unless it's like a special event. It's a special announcement that requires sort of the breaking news sort of, presentation. But you can usually gauge on once a month being the right amount of time and frequency to send out an email newsletter. It's basically saying, you know what? I have your contact information and I highly value that, and I highly value you, and I am not going to abuse that.
Absolutely. Well, and I think I've run into this a couple of times where, okay, so as I mentioned, historically, open rates on emails were abysmal. So some people have been like, ooh, 20 to 30%, that isn't very much. I'm like,
But
actually, that is incredible. So we have to remember, like Holly mentioned,
getting someone's undivided attention. Oof, yeah. That's
and
a big deal.
it's quality over quantity, and what's amazing. And again, it's not just limited to clients. We'll often go into Gmail, we'll go into iCloud, Yahoo, whatever it is. We're downloading those contacts. We use MailChimp primarily because it's very compliant with all the rules and regulations related to spam. You don't want to be using Outlook and sending out 100 emails because you'll get blacklisted and all kinds of nasty stuff happens where you can't use those emails anymore.
Like you respect your client's contact information, MailChimp respects that to the nth degree.
Yep.
And so they are very low on abuse reports rates and things like that because they pay very close attention to all of that.
So I think what's been fascinating for me is that, and like I said, for us, the decisions and how we recommend clients to use marketing tools is based on the engagement of their audience and how they behave. It's not how I would behave or even our customer. It's the customers of our clients is ultimately. And what's been really interesting for me observing this, given that I've done it for as long as I have, is that you have many people that open these emails 2, 3, 4, 5. They'll share them. And as Holly mentioned, again, it boils down to if the content is good, if the content is engaging and interesting, and you're treating them with that utmost respect and courtesy, email marketing is a great way to hit people that are maybe not on social media.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
we look at it really as an effective tool for,
Not everyone's on social, but
No.
everyone has an email address now.
right. So in some cases, our clients that are marketing business to business, social media maybe isn't as effective, but we've found that the email marketing strategy works extremely well because it stays them and keeps them connected with their business clientele. So, so it's kind of a, and I think this is what's cool about where marketing is on the one hand, lots of things change. And as Holly mentioned, it can be ad nauseum and much to our chagrin that it does change. On the other hand, some of these things don't change and it's just they're repackaged differently. So I think for us, I mean, that's the whole reason people come to us is we're trying to determine what is appropriate for them and what is not. But email marketing has definitely become a very effective tool.
Yeah. If you're not doing it, you haven't been doing it, or maybe you used to do it at some point and don't write it off. It's definitely worth revisiting. The other big point I want to make sure that we cover before we walk away from this topic in particular is just covering that whole concept of the data behind the email marketing.
Yes.
Because all programs, it doesn't even matter which ones you use. I mean, you could use a very manual one, but there's always data behind that email that goes out. So I think it's very important to bring up the fact that is amazing that you're sending out email newsletters. You're hitting the frequency. You've got a great list. Your feature type information where it's drawing people in, they're opening the emails. That's all wonderful. But if you're not looking at the data behind it, you're missing out.
Absolutely.
And you're missing the point entirely of the email newsletter. Even if you get someone who says, contact you or reaches out to you wanting more information. There's so much more data behind email marketing that's really important to pay attention to beyond just the open rates and who opened it. It's looking at times that it was open. So there's the frequency aspect, but there's also the time aspect. It's also very important what time you send out a newsletter during the course of the day. Maybe you have great lunchtime users. They consume that content at that point. Maybe you have people who the only time that they're able to consume it is at 9 o'clock at night after the kiddos are in bed, and they know that they've intentionally kept your email newsletter sitting there knowing that they would be able to read it at that point. So it's really important, and this goes hand in hand with knowing your demographic, knowing your audience. All of that is really stuff that you need to tune into and make sure that you're accessing on the back end after your newsletter has been sent out. When is it safe to look at that data? You don't want to look at that data an hour after you've sent out your email. I would say at least give it a 24-hour cycle before you start pulling and looking at that data and putting any credence on any of it. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think the thing, and for everybody that knows us, we believe that information behind the scenes is what helps us make recommendations of what clients should and shouldn't do. The other part of this is as you do that content and you're driving people, in many cases we'll embed like a video where they go and watch a video, or maybe it's not the whole talking points and then you go to the website for information.
What are they clicking on?
Right. So you'll also have statistics on, now I can go to the website and see what kind of traffic was generated.
Yeah.
So, not only are you looking at just the engagement of the email itself, but how that translates maybe into other activity from a marketing perspective for other things.
Well, and I would say the other thing to remember too is that email newsletters and those templates are a great source of information, and you're able to upcycle them and repurpose them. Like one of the things that we 100% recommend to most all of our clients, there's maybe a few that it doesn't necessarily make sense for, is that they take that PDF version of their newsletter and they put it onto their website. That counts as new content feeding into your website. That's current information. It's basically, okay, what just happened or what is going to happen in the next 30 days. So it's very relevant to keep on your website. It allows people to look at your history. So when you win awards and you put those things in newsletters, some of that stuff is not necessarily on your site or as frequently on your site, so it gets lost over time. Whereas if you have a database of newsletter content, it is just easy, usable content that you can have spread across the board. The other thing that we encourage people to do is to continue to use that information on social media as well. So maybe it's taking a snippet from your newsletter and it's reusing it over social media. Maybe it's putting the whole stinking thing on social media so people can read it, and it's a reminder to them to subscribe to your newsletter, because that's another way to get followers, especially if they're not super into social media, but they may be willing to follow you over some sort of email correspondence. So those are all things to think about. Reuse that content. It's not just meant for email. There's so many different formats that you can get it in now.
I'd say that's a good synopsis of email marketing.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the big gorilla in the room, and that is online advertising.
Yes.
So why don't you give us, Jason, a brief overview? I kind of touched on it a little bit in the intro, but to kind of give us an intro in your eyes about the categorization of online advertising and what does that mean?
Okay. So for most people, there's obviously other places you can do this, but in most cases, the two largest segments that you can pay for advertising or preference is Google and Facebook. Okay. So that's kind of where I begin is obviously you can play that game on the freeway. You know, you can
On the freeway.
where you're not paying to play. So obviously many people are used to this idea of a website in Google where am I in the top 10 or if I'm posting.
That's called organic.
Right. Organic search, which means that it's just sort of
it's flowing on its own. It's
whimsical
growing
way.
on its own.
Yep. Just kind of some
Riding
days.
that wave.
Yep. It's up and down. It's very unpredictable. With Facebook, same kind of scenario.
Even more unpredictable, to be honest.
Because the posts, if you post a piece of content, lightning may strike and it's really, really popular, but in most cases it doesn't get much traction.
Lightning never strikes.
No, pretty much. So I guess what a lot of people, when they think of online advertising, they most associate that with Google. And I think it's because it's a more conventional use where it is a preferred search that shows up if I'm looking for a term. Again, as Holly mentioned, that's AdWords. And I preface this by saying that there is a zillion people that try to sell this service. It can either be Google, it can be people that are not Google that claiming that they are.
Or packaging it as an SEO
services, lead generation. In almost every case, there is a commission-based incentive for who is ever doing this. So their goal is to get you to spend as much as you can.
As is Google.
So there's always an angle.
So when you get that call, that incessant call, and it's Google trying to reach out to you because they see that you have just opened up or started an ad, don't sweat it.
No.
They're acting like it's mission critical, but at the end of the day, most often, the information they're giving you is information regarding upselling what you're currently doing and have started to do. So don't sweat it. You're not going to curl up and die, and neither is your business or your ad for that matter.
And a lot of times they'll tell you, oh, if you do this, and this, you could improve. And it's usually because you have to spend more money.
Of course you're going to improve if you spend more money. You get more visibility.
Of course. So
you can tell we've taken these calls frequently.
Oh, goodness. It's like a broken record. But so for when I'm talking to people, I think, again, if we think about the purpose of Google and the purpose of social. So Google is more of that direct, somebody's told me about a business and I'm going to look them up, their name immediately. Or in many cases, they're searching for a service like just yesterday.
Usually it's more what Google calls it discovery searches. So maybe I should chime in here because I am the AdWord lady.
Yes.
Generate. So I know all the back end information. I know all the terminology. And so does Jason. But as far as like the analytics and the reporting
you're
behind
the guru.
it.
You're right.
But basically, yeah. So Google classifies that information or that kind of data and that particular customer. And let me get this clear. They consider the person out there doing the search their customer. You are a byproduct of that. So even though you're paying them money to advertise on their network, essentially, you are not their end customer. So yes, they're happy to take your money. They will exhaust and spend all of your budget that you've allotted for that month. But they do not consider you their end customer. So why is that important? Because there are various nuances that work into some of those search results and how they affect when you come up with your search, how you come up, what you're bidding on, why something may cost more, who your competition is. So I'm going to tell you right now, if you're already feeling like you're drinking out of a fire hose as we talk about this, it kind of is. It's kind of all over the place. And it can be very difficult and it can be very technical. And Google, like social media, they change their rules every day. And so what may have been relevant 2 weeks ago may not be relevant today. And that's one of the reasons why clients hire us to manage this and to stay on top of this, because it is something that can get very complicated very quickly. So I'm just going to say that. Don't beat yourself up if this is seeming a little bit more. So I'm going to try to stay high level today.
Yep, that's fine.
And kind of just break it down into some basics that we'll kind of run through. Yes, online marketing has changed, or online advertising has changed immensely since we sort of started dabbling in it about 5 years ago now, really, because it wasn't on our radar 9 years ago. But probably 3 to 4 years into this business, we saw that it certainly had its place. It was definitely relevant and continuing to build in that. So 5 years ago, we started dabbling in this, got into it hot and heavy, probably within that first 6 months to a year. Really saw great results from it, continue to see great results from it. But for those who are looking to advertise online, one of your biggest things is not necessarily the validation of who you are, because if they know your name or you've gotten a referral from someone, they're going to know to put in your name. They won't necessarily need to find you and click on an advertisement per se, although sometimes that does come into play. But we're going to focus on what it's truly for. It's for those people out there saying, oh, I don't know. I know that I want horse lessons, or I know that I need to stable my horse, but I don't know anybody in the Lincoln area or the vicinity that does that. So they're putting in horse stables or horse riding lessons or riding instructor. And so Google is saying, oh, I've got some great people over here, not only in the area, but I've also got 3 that are advertising with us. So I'm going to give them the preferred results.
Right.
So there's a difference between preferred results as it relates to paid advertising, and there are results, a completely set of different results as it relates to area advertising. Again, remembering that their end user is the person who's conducting the search. Okay. So we get this all the time, but I'm not coming up as the first result. Well, what are you looking at? Are you looking at the advertisement and the organic search results that just come up on the page where you can go page after page after page of results? Or are you looking at the little box essentially that comes up and lists those places and their locations? Because that's the key. Google is always going to provide their users, your customers and their customers, the searchers, with whatever is closest to them, because they are all about convenience. They want to give them as much convenience as possible. They want them to continue using their Google search engine. They want to continue to collect their data, all these reasons, but they want to give them the most valid search results. And it's always going to be about their location. And this is another important one to remember, previous search history. That's the other thing that plays into this. So though you're getting preferential treatment, if you're paying and advertising with them, they are still going to pull in all of those other results as it relates directly to that user and their history and where they're located.
It's completely customized experience.
Oh my gosh. And again, I know I'm blowing your mind, some of you. Some of you are like, yeah, duh, everybody knows that. That's not necessarily true. Not everybody knows this. It's just a really important thing to remember, okay? And it does skew and affect the data. How much your budget? How much have you budgeted? When you're searching, what people are searching for. All of that stuff is also going to affect how often your advertisement within Google and your AdWord is pulled in for impressions. And let me break impressions down for you. And this is also going to be true for social media advertising. There's a difference between impressions and there's a difference between links. Facebook calls it, how many people did we get in front, or did you get in front of? So they all mean the same thing. So like people can be out there searching and doing their thing and your advertisement will come up. But at the end of the day, they're either going to click on it or they're not. I mean, It's really going to boil down to those two actions. And many times people too, you don't necessarily have to pay for that click. Seeing your name in an advertisement is enough to go, oh yeah, duh. And they just put in your website directly, because many times you'll even come up in the place as a result as well. So they can click on that. That's a whole nother conversation. Like I said, guys, this is deep stuff. But at the end of the day, they're either going to click on you or not. If they don't click on you, but they see your advertisement, that's an impression. So when you see those numbers, and it's very important to look at your numbers, That's what that number means. And clicks are obvious. They're actually clicking on your advertisement and they're going into your website, wherever it is that you've set them up or wherever we've set them up to go into. Used to be that you had to click into home pages. Don't have to do that anymore because you get rewarded and you get better search results and honestly better clicks with quality clicks if you give people specific information. So if you're advertising, again, we can come back to the writing stables. If you're advertising writing lessons, you want to make sure that even if you have stables where people can keep their horses, but they come out to ride on their own, that you take them to your writing lessons page. You don't want to take them to your general homepage if you offer other services. Google's not going to like that as much if you take them to the direct page that person is searching for. So something else, another nuance to consider. A couple of the other points I want to cover, and I know I'm trying to keep this as high level without getting crazy into the details. You can be very specific with ads. So whether it's social media or whether it's AdWords, you can be very demographically specific. And this is why it's a big encouragement, especially as you build that visibility for your brand, that we encourage people to use online advertising because they can actually get to maybe it's a specific location, like even dial down to a very specific zip code. Maybe it's a certain age range. Maybe it's a certain lifestyle interest. Like, for example, you love DIY and your demographics and who your customer is line right up with that. You can be that specific in all of those things. Now, the caveat with that is that the government has cracked down on discriminatory aspects of that, which is probably a good thing. So you can't put in things like age, or not, I shouldn't say age. You can't put in things like income level. And that sort of thing. So those have kind of been taken out of your repertoire as far as narrowing down. The other big thing I want to touch on is, again, and I kind of mentioned this, is making sure that you do look at the data. Again, this is just as important, just like you do for your website, just like we mentioned with email marketing, you got to look at the data. There is so much buried in there. If you don't know who your demographic is, honestly, this is a great way for it to start telling you that immediately.
Absolutely.
And then you can adjust your advertising and adjust your marketing approach accordingly. So that's super important. It's all there. You can hook it up to your analytics as well. So it feeds in, and that feeds into, they can feed in, work kind of in tandem with one another. So you can actually go to your Google Analytics for your website, and it has already pulled in your AdWords analytics. Okay. So like you're not having to jump around either. And that's true for your places. So these are all things to think about and make sure that you're looking at. It provides a lot of great information. It is budget friendly. We do recommend usually that you start with a $200 budget on AdWords specifically. Facebook, you can pay a lot less. Facebook and Instagram, they'll give you love for $50 a month if that's what you've allotted your budget for. And there are some various advertising options. I think I'm going to save that for another day.
Well, and what's interesting, Holly, which is really cool, is normally I'm the one that's the geek out into the detail, into the weeds.
It's so hard.
I know.
I don't want to geek out.
That's okay.
But it's just deep.
It's very deep. So, okay, so I'm actually going to play the role of the very simple question of why. Okay, why do you do this? In addition to what she's mentioned, is so in the terms of what was in my toolbox 10 years ago to help people. When somebody comes to me and says, "Hey Jay, I'm a startup business. I reach these customers. What can I do?" Well, it was radio, television, newspaper, billboards, real traditional.
Really necessarily wasn't cost effective.
And it was extremely expensive. So what is revolutionary about the advertising products with Facebook and Google is, number one, they make their money entirely off of small businesses. So the budget considerations in most cases and the agile, non-contractual approach, which is very results-driven, allows us to work with budgets way less than we used to be able to.
It allows small business to play with the big boys.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so on just that alone, the ability to shut things on and off, to make immediate adjustments, like Holly said. So I use the roofing analogy. Hey, we had a hailstorm north of Lincoln. Boom. I can have hailstorm and roof repair.
These
boom.
zip codes are where the hailstorm occurred.
Right.
Pour all my budget and focus into that area only right now.
Correct. So the intelligence and just the smarts that you can use, and this is why we do help, is because there's so many pulleys and levers and buttons. There's just so many things you can do to customize this. And I know, that's what I always say. Pulleys and levers. So the point is that for many people, it's liberating because now you can have a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other part of this, which is a component, and Holly knows this much deeper than I do, is that if you are trying to compete with someone else for a bid for a specific keyword, which is kind of the way AdWords works, it's kind of in the context of the demand of the keyword in that given day determines the price per click. That's the other thing. You only pay per click, okay? And they evaluate who wins that bid on a variety of factors. And one of those factors is the quality of your website.
Oh, which is huge.
Which
In
is
fact,
huge.
honestly, at this point, like if you literally had to narrow it down to one thing that they base it off of, it doesn't have anything to do with your budget. It has everything to do with the quality of your website.
And your content. So
If I can't tell you how many times I've seen words come up on ad accounts, and right beside it is a little yellow triangle, and it says low quality score for that particular word, because they feel like your website is not addressing that particular keyword or phrase for their end user, and so they will not bring you up as an impression, let alone give you that opportunity for that click.
So what that means, and I think this is where Google went from something where you could literally cheat your way into the top 10, where that's impossible now. You can't.
Impossible.
And so therefore, of course, people that have bigger budgets, but now there is a counterbalance here where quality demands and is rewarded for who is bidding. So just because you're a bigger company doesn't mean you're going to win that bid.
And quality is bigger than just what's going on your website. Quality also means that you have amazing reviews sitting out there on Google.
Right.
Or
Goo-
even sitting out there on
And
Facebook.
Google Places is filled out
Yes,
correctly.
yes.
Webmaster Tools is set up.
There are all these best practices that have to be in place and are enforced as it relates to your direct results on across the board, all
Right.
of your Google results.
So I tell people it's kind of like compliance. I say it's like the IRS. It's constantly changing, but here's the things that we have to follow to be in the good graces of Google. So bottom line is this applies to this and Facebook, because now we've created an affordable option, and we'll get into the Facebook stuff here in a second, that is agile, non-contractual, people can have a seat at the table, and oh, by the way, you just can't buy yourself in. So this has been revolutionary. And for us, we now have clients that, I mean, our passion is small business. We love the underdog. We can help them now. And it has been exhilarating. So, I mean, despite whether you like or don't like Google and or Facebook,
Yeah.
they have created an affordable, effective tool to get people engaged that can turn into leads and sales.
And I would argue, as it relates specifically to Google AdWords, of all the things that we've talked about over the course of this series of kind of where things are as it relates to digital marketing, I would say that the Google AdWords in particular, that has been a huge improvement, even in the past 5 to 6 years that we've been using it.
It's amazing.
So some of these other things, like, you know, whether or not you're into social media and all the things going on with social media, even some of the all of the website things that have changed, video, all these other topics that we've addressed, I would say that of all of those, you know, website probably being the next one under that, Google AdWords has improved the most for their actual users, our customers, and how we help them, because not only it allows you to work with all kinds of budgets, whether they're big, middle, and between, or small, middle, and big, or whether, you know, the more specific you are with marketing and you're a smaller brand or a smaller business, it still allows you to play with the big league people. And that has been incredible and has given so many. I mean, we could even speak from our standpoint.
Yes, I was going to talk about
Okay,
that.
go ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
because you just fielded a call yesterday, I
right.
would say.
So, I mean, for those that know our business, we obviously serve businesses. And I would say 98% of the way I've gotten business over the years is through networking and referrals.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, I've done some things on the radio here and there and whatnot every other week with Jack Mitchell. But bottom line is it's been all word of mouth stuff. All of a sudden, and again, we like to practice what we preach. So we do also spend $200, $300 a month on AdWords. And something I noticed, and I think this is a trend that we're trying to educate everybody on, is people like to research things. And because the results of Google have gotten more qualified and more helpful, people have sought that out and started to trust now that, hey, I'm looking for digital marketing. So we have received a significant number of leads in the last 3 years. This blows my mind. I mean, even for me, guys, and I'm in this area, it's still amazing to me when I say, how did you find out about us? And this is somebody asking.
I Googled you.
Yeah, it's not like,
Or-
hey, I want to go,
I
some
just
real
found
simple.
you. They usually say I found you on Google.
I
or
found you on
something.
Google.
Yeah.
And in almost every case, they're searching for marketing. And these people are not young either. We're not talking about millennials. We're talking about baby boomers, people that have had businesses for over 20 years. They are using Google
Yeah.
to research.
So it's not a specific trend with an age group. no.
Correct. So what this is telling us is that the quality of the search results has influenced people's willingness to trust
For the
and
best.
really look into, I'm trying to find something. And they're not just going to only what somebody says. They're going to seek that. So this really is a game changer in that now people can get leads that obviously we're all about referrals and we're all about marketing to the people you know. In many cases, email is what we're talking about there. Man, this is it's crazy. So like I said at the very beginning when I was surprised about email, for us, we've been doing this long enough to know that you never want to make assumptions.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, the data, the traction, the validation, that's the thing that gives us the evidence. And for us, it's encouraging because we know that in certain industries, if we do the right things, we can put our clients in a good position to be able to succeed.
Mhm.
But I think the main caveat here, and then we can maybe talk a little bit about Facebook, as it relates to Google, is there is so many nuances of adjustments that it is in your best interest to have someone hired to help you, because it is not just a easy button, press it and let it sit on the shelf. That usually does not work well. The power of AdWords is in its ability to make adjustments and refinements and tweaks so that you get better results, better traffic, and ultimately people that are going to get in touch with you.
Mhm.
So that's probably enough on AdWords. Is there anything else you want to add?
I would say that's enough for AdWords at this point. We do run a workshop on that. So if anyone is interested in us actually showing up and doing an online advertising workshop, we can certainly do that. And we're open to doing that and have done that in the past. So yeah, definitely reach out to us if you feel that that might be something that's right for you or you want to have a conversation just overall. Getting into Facebook, that's a whole nother ball of wax.
It is.
It's not as detailed and complicated, to be
It's not.
honest. So, like, I don't necessarily feel like it's as much time as warranted spending on Facebook advertising. It is pretty self-explanatory once you get in there. I will let you know and clarify that there are 2 different ways. Ultimately, they'll argue that there's 10,
Yeah.
but there's essentially 2 ways that you can advertise on Facebook and Instagram. And we're not even speaking of like the LinkedIn's and all this other stuff that's going on, because they
YouTube,
have their
different
own
things.
set
Yeah,
of
I mean, these-
advertising too.
Pinterest, you can all.
But
that
those
stuff.
are obviously Facebook and Instagram are going to be the key ones. And there's 2 different ways. So let me circle back around here. So there is boosting a post, which almost everyone is aware of how they can boost a post, because when you run a business page on Facebook, it's always there as an option.
Right.
Okay. And it does allow you to get to some specific demographics, interests. It tells you, but it gives you budget options. It gives you location options. It gives you interest options, all of those things. So that's all fine and dandy. Then there is the one that most people don't know about or confused about. And that's this sort of back end. They call it their promote. It's sort of their back end where you have all these various options on how you can use their advertising on the back end of Facebook and Instagram. And so that you get in there, it's, do you want to generate sales leads? Do you want people to contact you directly? Do you want people to visit your website? Do you just want to advertise that you're in the area? I mean, there's all these different options, but essentially all of those boil down to, we're going to run a back end advertisement into people's feeds based on specific criteria that you put in. That's maybe a temporary ad. You can set it to ongoing ads. So literally it's running through all month long, each month until you switch it off. And just like AdWords, they are more than happy to make sure that they utilize and spend your budget. They'll even give you some rough estimates on how many people that you can reach with this budget. All good, viable choices. So I'm not going to tell you the right or the wrong. They're all great. And actually, you can spend even less on Facebook and get in front of people too, with even more specific information about who that demographic is that you're trying to target. So I would encourage you to either reach out to us or explore more of that on the back end of your business page and take advantage of some of that.
Now, what I would say is here would be difficulty for someone is that the tools I think are easier on Facebook, but the knowledge required of how you target your audience and who they are and what their type is and all that stuff, those are the things that sometimes clients may or may not know. So the other part of Facebook is making sure that we understand what's the end goal.
There's some implied foreknowledge. Absolutely. Yeah. And I say that just across the board.
Yep, absolutely.
That would be true for anything that we're talking about, including email marketing. So,
but what I would say that Facebook allows us to do that we can't do in Google is we can get further into specific nuances of the audience we're trying to reach. So, a lot of people ask me this, and we talk about this. Social media can be more challenging to monetize, but ultimately, if you do the right things and you have the idea of what's the goal, again, that idea you're marketing to people again, I think they've done a good job of making the social media platform and the advertising products much more effective.
So there is your drinking out of a fire hose version of online advertising. I know it's a lot, people. It's even a lot as I'm sitting here breaking it down or trying to. Like, I came into this with all of these bullet points I wanted to make sure I cover, but because there are so many nuances even underneath those bullet points, it's just a lot. And I don't pretend that it's otherwise. So if you have any questions, let us know. We're happy to have a conversation with you. But that is all that we'll cover today. Like I said, we can get into this a lot deeper if necessary. In fact, perhaps in the next podcast or so we will. But certainly reach out if you feel like that's something that you want to have a conversation about or get a better understanding or even enlist us to help you with, because we're more than happy to do that. So now we move on to wrap up for our question of the day.
Oh boy. I don't know what this is going to be.
Well, you're not supposed to.
I know. I'm on the spot.
If you could be a cartoon figure for a week, not even a day or even an hour, who would you be?
Oh, man. Okay.
I know.
That's
takes you back, right? Because obviously when you're a kid, mostly is when you're watching
right.
cartoons. Although there's plenty of adult
my
cartoons.
favorite cartoons.
Not only your favorites, but like characters you admire. Because I think like Garfield, he lives the ultimate lazy life, but he's a jerk.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, for those that know me, I love to draw Garfield. But yes, as I look as an adult, he's kind of he's a cynical jerk. Honestly, if I had to pick someone, I think it'd be sweet to be Fred on Scooby-Doo.
Oh, Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, like he's the he's a smart guy. He's always the one that's kind of the leader of the pack. He knows
he's
what
like
he's
the
doing.
MacGyver too. He's always the one like comes up with the specialty traps.
Yeah, he's like and he's like the girls like him and stuff. He's a good dude. I like it. He's I always thought Fred was a stud. I like to wear that scarf. Like that scarf that he wears, pretty sweet.
I think mine are down to 2, and it's mainly just nostalgia. It's not even necessarily like thinking about where I am right now in my head, which hopefully should say something about being mature. But I would say She-Ra, because I think it's pretty sweet that she can be normal, but then she can obviously transform into Princess of Power.
I know.
Hello. She's like super amazing.
Yeah.
And she's got skills.
I was thinking about He-Man. But I was like, well, he's kind of a meathead or whatever. So I was like, and he wears like, it's like Conan the Barbarian or whatever. But
they've kind of rebooted She-Ra, and so I'm like, do I really want to pick She-Ra? So I would say one that they tried to reboot several years back, but it didn't work, and it was like in a live action, was Jem, because Jem has the same alter ego, and she has an amazing theme song. And she wears some super
Jem was pretty
clothes.
sweet.
She has like a little star over her eye.
My sister liked Jem.
And I would say that would be pretty sweet to have this little alter ego where you could go on stage and totally rock out.
That's
and
pretty
she was
awesome.
a nice person.
Yeah, I was going to say Jem's pretty good.
Forget the Misfits.
I just remembered mine. Optimus Prime. Hands down.
Well, yeah.
I like, no question, for those that know me, I love Transformers. The original animated series, which most people don't know this. The voice of Megatron is the same voice as Fred in Scooby-Doo.
Oh, geez, I don't think I
Bam,
realized
that guy's like the man
know?
of a million voices.
I guess so.
There you go. But needless to say, so mine, yes, the Fred one's awesome, but I have to say, as we're talking here, Optimus Prime, special place in my heart.
Yeah.
I just need Peter Cullen's voice, which I do not have. So
all right.
there it is.
There you go, folks. Thanks for listening. Jason, where can people find us?
Just go to our website. It's Generate Marketing, GENR8marketing.com. You can get to us. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, the works, LinkedIn. We always got stuff going on. And
Phone number.
Phone number.
If you want to go conventional.
Phone number 402-817-1224. We got a new phone system, so it's easier to get hold of us too.
True.
There you
Very
go.
true.
All right.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everybody.